The rivalry between the United States and China is entering a stage that feels more like a duel than a disagreement. What began as a trade war has grown into a contest of symbols, where each side looks for ways to strike not only at the other's economy but at its very identity. In Washington, tariffs and sanctions continue to mount, while in Beijing, officials weigh countermeasures aimed at the heart of American culture. Reports now suggest that one of the most recognized icons of US influence abroad, McDonald's, could face sweeping restrictions in China. The question is no longer about trade alone. It's about power, image, and pride. Could this be the moment where a trade dispute turns into something far larger? Whispers inside China's Ministry of Commerce reveal that officials are considering a strike that could reverberate across the globe. The proposal is to raise tariffs on every product connected to the American fast food giant McDonald's. This would be more than an economic maneuver. It would be a symbolic act aimed at wounding the United States, where its influence has always been most visible in culture, in lifestyle, and in global identity. Washington's reaction to this possibility has already been filled with unease. According to reports from Politico, Donald Trump has warned his closest advisors that such a move would amount to a direct attack on the American way of life. To him, McDonald's represents more than food. It is a banner of American influence, one that has traveled from New York to New Delhi and from Chicago to Beijing. Trump's sharp remarks quickly captured headlines, and soon the White House was working on an urgent response. According to CNN, a sweeping package of retaliatory measures was being prepared. It included new tariffs on Chinese steel, consumer goods, and high-tech electronics. Insiders whispered about figures that had not been seen before, duties rising as high as 200% on selected Chinese imports. Such measures would almost certainly raise prices in the United States, but advisors close to Trump argued that this demonstration of strength was essential to send a message. The message was that Washington would not be cornered. The story does not end with Beijing. A far more dramatic twist is emerging from New Delhi. The Hindu reports that India is quietly considering taking Beijing's side. Officials there have begun discussing their own restrictions on American fast food chains, an act that would hit the same symbol at the heart of the American identity. This is not only about tariffs or market share. Inside India, frustration has long brewed over the dominance of American brands, which critics say sidelined domestic businesses and stifled local competition. The possibility of aligning with Beijing in striking McDonald's has taken on the flavour of a strategic choice, one that could cement India's partnership with China in a new era of cooperation. Government insiders suggest that the talks are happening behind closed doors, and though the details remain hidden, the outcome could reshape the balance of global power. A joint action by China and India against one of America's most visible exports would be nothing less than seismic. Analysts at The Economist highlight that McDonald's is not simply a chain of restaurants. It embodies decades of American cultural dominance, exported across borders as a shorthand for modernity and Western influence. If both China and India move together, hundreds of restaurants would face immediate closure, with tens of thousands of employees left adrift. The shock would extend far beyond the company's balance sheet. It would become a blow against American soft power itself, undermining the perception that US culture is untouchable. Inside Washington, economists are already warning that such a move would unleash ripple effects far beyond Asia. If China and India succeed in targeting McDonald's, other members of the BRICS coalition, Brazil, South Africa, and potentially Russia, could follow suit. That possibility turns a single tariff proposal into a looming global campaign against one of America's most potent cultural symbols. Back in the United States, the political storm is growing. The Wall Street Journal reports that some of the country's largest agricultural lobbies are pressing the White House for urgent action. McDonald's is a colossal buyer of US agricultural products, from beef to potatoes, and suppliers fear losing billions in exports if access to Asian markets is cut off. For many rural producers, the contracts tied to McDonald's are lifelines, and the prospect of disruption is creating panic in key constituencies. Yet sources close to Trump insist his position is hardening rather than softening. In private conversations, he has reportedly declared that Washington will not yield an inch. His words echo a sentiment of defiance. China thinks it can dictate terms, but America must prove it can respond with greater force. For the attack on McDonald's is seen as a challenge to American consumer culture itself, a deliberate attempt to strip away one of Washington's most recognizable exports. If carried out, it will not merely signal a change in tariffs. It will open a new stage in the global rivalry between East and West. China is proving it can fight asymmetrically, targeting symbols rather than structures, while Washington appears equally determined to demonstrate that its cultural pillars cannot be dismantled. Neither side shows signs of retreat, and that is precisely what makes the standoff so perilous. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, Europe is beginning to feel the tremors. Diplomats in Brussels admit that they are monitoring the situation with concern. Reports from the Financial Times reveal that leaders in the European Union fear being dragged into a conflict that could disrupt their own fragile economies. A coordinated strike against McDonald's in Asia would have immediate consequences for European industries connected to the supply chain, from agricultural exports to packaging and food equipment manufacturing. The possibility of shrinking contracts looms large, and with Europe's economy already strained, officials in Paris and Berlin are quietly voicing the need for distance from Washington's hardline policies, even as their official statements remain muted. The pressure inside the United States continues to climb. Reuters reports that McDonald's itself has directly reached out to the White House. In a private letter, executives warned that the simultaneous closure of restaurants in China and India would deal an irreparable blow to the company's brand. The stakes are staggering. Losing two of the largest Asian markets could erase tens of billions of dollars from McDonald's market capitalization and trigger a free fall in its stock value. Financial insiders in New York suggest that hedge funds are already preparing strategies to cushion against a decline, a move that further fuels market anxieties. On the Chinese side, state media is shaping the narrative carefully. Outlets like the People's Daily are framing the debate as an overdue correction of foreign dominance. McDonald's is portrayed as a symbol of Western intrusion into Asia, one that has overstayed its welcome. On Chinese social media, nationalist voices are amplifying this message, calling for boycotts and demanding tariffs. Hashtags urging support for local fast food chains are trending, creating fertile ground for government action. If Beijing decides to proceed, it will be stepping into a wave of public support that makes resistance politically costly. In India, the mood is evolving in a similar way. According to the Hindu Business Line, government-linked initiatives are already underway to promote local alternatives that could rise quickly if American chains are squeezed. Entrepreneurs are seizing the moment, branding their businesses as patriotic choices while calling for stronger measures against foreign dominance. For Indian policymakers, the possibility of gaining both public favour and stronger alignment with China is proving to be a tempting combination. The trap tightening around Washington is becoming clear. The New York Times reports that the White House is holding a series of confidential meetings with the Treasury Department, the State Department, and the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative. The aim is to map out strategies ranging from new tariffs to direct diplomatic pressure. Yet every potential move carries its own dangers. Any increase in duties could trigger fresh retaliation from Beijing. Any attempt to push India could backfire and push New Delhi deeper into China's orbit. The United States is caught in a web of decisions where each choice threatens to worsen its position. The numbers at stake are daunting. Together, China and India represent a consumer base of more than 2 billion people. If they coordinate in targeting McDonald's, the impact will strike far beyond fast food. It will ripple into America's global reputation as a cultural leader, eroding the very image of its economic supremacy. Experts at the Harvard Kennedy School warn that this may evolve into a prolonged cultural and informational conflict, where every menu, every logo, and every product is framed as part of a larger struggle. It will not be confined to tariffs and duties. It will be fought in public opinion, in social media campaigns, and in shifting loyalties across nations. In this sense, McDonald's is no longer a brand, it is a battlefield. And while symbols are being drawn into the fight, the economic front remains just as tense. China's export growth slipped to a 6-month low in August, revealing that the temporary lift from a tariff truce with Washington is quickly fading. Officials in Beijing are now turning to other sources of demand to steady an economy weighed down by weak household consumption and rising external risks. The leadership, determined to secure annual growth of around 5%, is pressing manufacturers to seek new markets instead of leaning too heavily on fiscal stimulus that could worsen long-term vulnerabilities. Customs data showed that outbound shipments in August climbed 4.4% compared with a year earlier. That fell short of expectations, with analysts surveyed by Reuters forecasting a stronger 5% increase. The outcome also represented the slowest pace of expansion in half a year, slipping notably from July's healthier 7.2% rise. Imports told a similar story of loss in momentum. After recording growth of 4.1% in July, they edged up only 1.3% in August, far weaker than the 3% improvement that economists had projected. Part of the decline can be explained by statistical distortions. Last year's figures were inflated by a wave of manufacturers racing to get products out before new tariffs from multiple trading partners went into effect. Still, the numbers reinforce the reality that China's export machine, though resilient, is being tested. Xu Tianchen, senior economist at the Economist Intelligence Unit, argued that the data remains relatively strong considering the environment and noted that China still possesses policy levers it has not fully deployed. Credit from state banks and targeted monetary easing, he suggested, could provide enough support to help maintain the 5% target without resorting to sweeping stimulus measures. What do you think? Tell us in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit like and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in.